In our previous class, we started looking at design system documentation. We looked at how to come up with an industry standard grid system across the three major breakpoints, which are mobile, tablet, and desktop devices. We equally looked at how to create a style guide and repository for such a grid system where we save the grid styles in our style library as mobile, tablet, and desktop layout styles. So if I should come over here to my properties panel, as part of my style library, I have layout guide styles. And under that, I have a grid system which is comprised of mobile layout styles, tablet layout styles, and desktop layout styles. A link to the video on how the grid system was created is in the description for your reference. In today's class, we are going to be looking at how to come up with an industry standard typography system while referencing the material design guide. From the computer analysis we carried out during the user research stage, we were able to determine the font family we are going to use for our current website project, which is a wind turbine website. And we determined that font family by going to other websites in that particular industry. In this case, we are looking at the design of a wind turbine website which belongs to the renewable energy industry. And from the computer analysis, the list of font families or the most used fonts include Titanium Web, Open Sans, Victory, Montserrat, and Inter. We're able to get these font families by going into other wind turbine websites and carrying out a website inspection using the CSS Peeper extension. As you can see over here, when I bring up my CSS Peeper extension, I have that under the typography, we have Titanium Web used for the heading text and we have Titanium Web used for the body text. If I go and check another wind turbine website which belongs to the same category of websites or the same industry, and I bring up my CSS Peeper extension, under typography in this case, I have Vestal Sans, and I have for the body text, I have Vestal Sans as well. Now you can also get your font family by inspection, which simply means that you could go to any particular website and then right click on any area on the website and then go to the inspect tool. Click on inspect, and automatically you have the ability to inspect that website and also look at the font family that is used in the design of that website. In this case, I'm going to scroll down to where it says font family, and then you can see that under font family I have Titanium Web. That's for this website. If I go to another wind turbine website and instead of using the CSS Peeper extension, if I decide to inspect this, I will right click on any region on the website and then go to where it says inspect. Once I click on that, automatically I have the ability to inspect the website and check for properties such as the font family that is used in that particular website. In this case, I have Vestal Sans as the font family. You could also get your font family from a list of fonts in the font stack of that particular website. For example, if we go to a random website like the UTF website and then I decide to inspect this website by right clicking on it and then going to the inspect tool, I am going to have a list of possible fonts which I could use in the design of such a website. If I go to where it says font family, you can see that we have System UI, Apple System, Togo UI, Roboto, Helvetica, and a list of font families all belonging to the same sans serif category that I could use in the design of such a website. So for our current website project, we have decided that out of the list of the most used fonts that I use, we are going to be picking Titanium Web as our used font family. Now that we have determined the font family that we are going to use, let us see how we can come up with a typography system. In order for us to come up with a typography system, we are going to be referencing the material design guide. So I'll come over here in my browser and I'm going to type in material design 3. I'll click on that, and then when the results come up, I'll go over to where it says typography. I'll click on that, and when that comes up, I'll go to the region that talks about applying type. So I'll come over here, I'll click on this, and then I'm going to scroll down to see the different types of text that we actually have and the different roles that they play. In material design, typography styles are defined by 5 major roles. These are the display role, we have the headline role, we have the title role, we have the body role, and then we have the label role. So the question becomes, what is a display role and how is it different from the headline role? And how is headline role different from title role? And how is title row different from the body row, and how is the body row different from the label row. In order for us to understand these different rows or these different styles, let us look at these rows or these styles one after the other. Now the first one we are going to be looking at is referred to as the display row or the display style or the display text. Now display styles are the largest text on the screen, used in places like the hero sections of web pages as they work best for large screens. They are used as short imported text in an expressive type font that is going to make users or that entices readers to actually engage with the text. And what this simply means is that the largest text that you will most likely have on your screen is actually the display text. If I come over to any of our competitors' websites, like if I go to the Goldread website, I'm going to take out this inspection tool. We are going to see that for the hero section, there's a very large text here that gives you a general idea of what this website is about, or that gives you a general idea of what this web page section is about. Now this very large text here is what we refer to as the display text, since it is the largest text on the screen. Now you can see that this text actually uses a very expressive type font, which is actually a common property of a display text. If I go to another website, to this architectural website here, and I click on it, you can see that over here we have also in the hero section a very large text here, which is also used in an expressive font, playing the role of a display text. So we have now seen that the display text is actually very expressive and it is the largest text that is used on the screen. So for that reason, we now know what our display text is. Now after our display text, we have text playing another role, which is referred to as the headline text. Headlines are short and expressive text which are actually much smaller than display text and are used for marking primary passages of text. Now over here you can see that display texts are used in such a way that they are usually very large and very expressive, and they are mostly used in the hero sections of our web pages, or they are used in areas where you want to have very large and very expressive fonts, especially on large screens. Headline texts are quite smaller than display text. Headline texts are used when you want to actually mark the beginning of large or primary paragraphs. Like if I come over to this website that I have here, what I have here is the display text. Now you can see that the display text is actually an expressive text in the hero section. Now after that, if I should scroll down to the bottom, just before I have a particular paragraph that talks about a particular subject, you can see that we have another category of text here. Now this text is referred to as the headline text. Now this text actually marks or talks about or is related to what this paragraph actually describes. So for that reason, this is the text that is marking this primary passage that I have here. So now we know that we have a display text. We know that we have what is referred to as our headline text. So now we have talked about two rows, which are the display role and the headline row. After the display and headline rows, we also have another row which is referred to as the title row. The title rows or title styles are relatively short and are often used to introduce the titles of web page sections. They are much smaller than the headline styles. They are used for marking secondary text passages. So while the headlines are used for marking primary head passages, title rows are used to actually introduce a web page section or for marking secondary text passages, and they are much smaller than the headline rows. Now an example of that is also seen here on this website. We know that this is the display text. Over here we have the headline text marking the primary or main passage, and then you can see that for this section we have a little text here that says about us. So this text is actually introducing this web page section, letting you know that you are now on the about us page. Alright, now if I come over here, you can see that we have another little text here that says publications, okay, which simply means that in as much as our headline text actually marks the primary content or primary descriptive text that we have here, we have the title text introducing us to the page or letting users know that they are on this particular page or they are on the about us page. So that is one of the functions of the title row. And you can see that the display text are the largest text in this case, followed by the headline text. And we can see that the title text are much smaller than the headline text. So now we know three rows of text and three functions that they play. We know the function of the display text, we know the function of the headline text, and then we know the function of title text. So after looking at the display text, the headline text, and the title text, we are going to look at another category of text which is referred to as the body text or body styles. Now, body styles are used mainly as descriptive content which are more like for the passages of headlines. So if I come over to this website, you can see that for this particular descriptive content or descriptive text that we have here, that actually describes what the headline is talking about, we have little text here or body text, as you can see here. Now these we have here referred to as the body text of this particular web page section at this point. All right, so we have the headline text, we have the title text, then we have a combination of text acting as a passage describing the headline text. So that combination of text, as you can see in this case, is referred to as body text. Now for body text, we mainly use non-expressive fonts, which are referred to as sans serif fonts, which actually makes them readable. So we have display text, we have headline text, we have title text, we have the body text. Aside from this, we also have another text playing a role that is referred to as the label text. Now the label text styles or label rules are used in the design of components such as filter shapes, navigation bars, or captions. And you can see that over here it says label styles are smaller utilitarian styles used for things like the text inside components or for very small text in the content body such as captions. So label texts are a bit smaller than what? Than our body text. So these are the 5 major rules, or these are the 5 categories of text that we are going to be talking about. The display text or display rule, we have the headline text, we have the title text, we have the body text, and we have what is referred to as the label text. So now that we know the different categories or roles that text play, let's see how we can actually come up with a type scale or a typography system. To do that, I'm going to go back to Figma, and then I'm going to bring in all the different roles that we just talked about. So I'll go to the text tool, and then I'm going to put in my display text. So I have my display text. Let me zoom in on that. I have my display text. And then before bringing in the other rows or types of text, I'm going to select this and I'm going to choose the font family that I want to use to create my typography system. Now that I've written my display text, I'll come over here and change this from Inter. In my own case, I want to be using Titanium Web. I'll change this from Inter to Titanium Web. Now I've changed that from Inter to Titanium Web. Now, aside from my display text, I also have the next category of text, which is the headline text. So I have the headline text. After the headline text, I have another category of text, which is title text. After that, I have the body text. And after that, I have the label text. But we know that we are going to be making our designs across 3 major breakpoints, which are desktop, tablets, and the mobile breakpoint. So we could decide to label this desktop as large, we could decide to label this as medium, and we could decide to label the mobile as small. So I'll come over here. I'm going to name, since this is actually the largest screen, this will be large. Let's increase the size of this particular text. So I'll come over here and give that, let's say, a size of 100 pixels. So for my desktop screen, this will be large. My tablet screen, this will be medium. And then for my mobile screen, that will be small. So my screens are desktop, the tablet, and the mobile screen, which are large, medium, and small. Now, since we are going to be making our designs across these three major breakpoints of screens, that simply means that for each of the text that we are about to design for, which simply means for each of these rows that we have here, I'm going to have a display text for a desktop device. I'm also going to have a display text for a tablet device, and I'll have a display text for a mobile device. So for that reason, I'm going to have display large, display medium, display small. The same thing happens to my headline text. I will have headline large, headline medium, headline small, title large, title medium, title small. Just like that for all the different rows that we have here, because they are going to be applied across all three screens. So I'll come over here now and I'm going to put in a text for display large. So I'll come over here and I'll change this to display large. I'm going to have display large, display medium, display small. So I have display large. Over here, I'm going to have display medium, and then I'm going to have display small. Now I'm going to have a display text for my desktop device, a display text for my tablet device, and a display text for my mobile device. Now, in order to make this a little more organized, I want to put these three text categories in an auto layout. So I'll highlight all of them, click on Shift A. I have them in an auto layout. Let me align this to the center, and then let me create a distance between them. Let me just give this auto layout a padding of 24. And then let me put in a distance between items of 12. Now I have something like this. Let me align all the text to the center. Set that to hug, and now I have everything aligned to the center. So these three texts or these three variations are going to be playing the display text. So we have the display large, display medium, and display small. And the same way, we are going to be having headline large, headline medium, headline small down to the label text. What I want to do now is I'm going to create a frame. I'll come over here, click on the frame tool, hold and drag on this, create a frame. I'm going to make that, give that a width of, let's say, 1600 pixels for the width and the same for the height. Now I have something like this. I'm going to take my text and put my text inside this frame. I want to change the color of that text from white to black so we can see it here, which is fine. And then I'm going to actually label this frame, or I will name this frame. I will select it. And then over here, I'll change this to typography system. So my entire type scale is going to be placed on this frame. So over here, I will simply come over here and I'll take a text and then hold and drag it here and change this to typography system. And then I'm going to put in the name of the font family just beside it. So for my typography system, my font family is Titanium Web. So I'll just put in Titanium Web. I'll hold this and then let's increase the size from 12 pixels. So let's say 20 pixels. I have something like this. So this will be for my typography system. I'll come over here, align this to the center. Now I have that. I'm going to have another category of text here that talks about weight value. So I'll put in weight values, depending on whether we are going to be using regular, bold, or any other variation of weight value. So for now, I'll just set this to weight values. Now I have this. Now, under this category, we are going to be having the display large, display medium, display small, which we've already created. So I'm going to hold this and I'll place it here. Let me give this an outline so we can clearly see it. I'll give this a stroke of 2. I have something like this, which is fine. So I have my display large, display medium, and display small. After that, I also have my headline text. So I'm going to be having, in this case, this is going to be headline large, headline medium, and headline small, representing the next category of text. So I'll change this to headline large. This will be headline medium. This will be headline small. I'm done with that particular row or that particular category of text. After the headline row, we know that we have the title row. So I'll bring this over here. And this is going to be title large. Next is title medium. And the next here is title small. After the title row, we have the body row. So I'll select this, make a copy, bring it down here. I have body large, body medium, and then I have the body small text. After that, I'll select this, bring it down here for my last text row, which is the label row. So I'll come over here, change this to label large, change this to label medium, and then change this to label small. Now I have the different types of text which I'm going to be using to actually create my type scale or my typography system. I have my display text across all 3 screens. I have my headline text across all 3 screens. I have my title text, I have my body text, and I also have my label text. So at this point, we want to look at the actual values of these text rows in order for us to have the convenient sizes that will fit into a desktop device, a tablet device, and a mobile device. And in order for us to know the actual values or the actual size tokens of these particular text rows, we are going to be referencing the material design guide. In this case, I'm going to click on this video that talks about type, scale, and tokens. So as I click on that, I'll scroll down to where I have a list of my sizes for each of those texts that we have. I'll go over to the section that talks about type scale. I'll click on that. And now, once you scroll down, you are going to have this region that says type scale tokens. And we are going to be using the baseline type scale tokens. Now, under this, we are going to see a table that has the different text styles that we have been talking about, which includes the display text, the headline text or the headline styles, the title styles, the body styles, and the label styles. If I click on any of this category, like for the display styles, I have display large, display medium, display small, just like we have it there in Figma now. If I click on this, I have headline large, headline medium, headline small. Let me collapse that. If I click on the title styles, I have title large, title medium, title small. So now let's click or let's check for any of these particular tokens so we can see the token values that are used for each of these categories of text. Now for the display large text, I'm going to come over here. Now click on display large. And once I click on that, you are going to see that we have these particular layouts here that talks about the font family, that talks about the font width, that talks about the font size, that talks about the letter spacing, and also talks about the line height. Now in order for us to see the properties of the display text, which in this case, the display large text, I will come back here and then I'm going to click on this first option that I have here that says display large. And the moment I click on it, automatically all the properties of the display large text are represented here as tokens, right? You can see that over here we have the name here, which is display large, right? Then for the font family, in this case, material design is actually using Roboto, but in our case, since we are working on different projects, we are using Titanium Web. You can decide to use any font family in this particular case. All right, so we have that the text in this case, or the text full, is the display large text, right? In this case, for material design, the font family is Roboto. You can always change this to any font family of your choice. And after that, we have other properties of text, which include the font width, the font size, the line height, and the font tracking. Now, these are the token values that we are going to be using to customize each of our text that we have here. But in this case, we are looking at this display large text. So I'll come over here. I'm going to select this text, and then I'm going to go back to material design. And let's see how we can now create a type scale using these token values that we have here. So in this case, like we say, this is the display large text, all right? The font family here is Roboto. We already have our own font family, so we'll not be bothered about this. After that, we have what is referred to as the font width. And you can see that in this case, the font width has a value of 400, which represents regular, as you can see here. All right, you can see that this font width is what is regular, and regular has a value of what, of 400, which simply means that for my display text, material design is letting me know that for my display large text, I should come over to the font width and set the font width or give it a value of 400, which is regular. So I'll go back to my display large text in Figma, and I'll come over to the font width and make sure that the font width is actually set to regular. So now I have that set to regular. Now I'll go back to material design and check for other properties. Now after the font width, I have the font size. Material design is letting us know that for a display large text, we should use a font size of 57 px, right? You can now see that in this case, I have font size, and the value here for the large size or the display large size is 57 pixels. So I'll come back to Figma and then change the size of this, in this case, from 12 to 57 pixels. I'll put in 57. Now I have something like this, right? Let me select this particular auto layout and set its property to all content, so it can actually contain what I have here. I'll select this, select this, select this, select this, and then just bring them down. So now I have my display large text. I'll hold and drag on this so I can have some space around it. So we've actually configured or put in two particular properties now for this text. We'll put in the font family, and then we'll put in the font size. I will also have what is referred to as the line height and the letter spacing. So let's see the values that is recommended by material design for our display large text. So now I'll go back to material design and check for other properties of my display large text. So I'll go back to material design, and now I have the font width settled. I have the font size settled. Now for the line height, material design is letting us know that for a display large text, we could use or give it a line height of 64 pixels. So for a display large text with a size of 57 pixels, use a line height of 64 pixels. So I'll come back to Figma, and while I have this text selected, I'll come back to the line height property. Right now, or it was set to auto, I'll click on it and put in 64 pixels over there. So now I have this for the line height of this text. So I'll go back again and check for the font tracking, which represents the letter spacing. I can see that the font tracking value or letter spacing value in this case is minus 0.25 pixels, right? So I'll come back here and then change this font value to minus 0.25 px. So now I have my display large text configured. Now those are the only properties that we have there for the display large text. All right. So we've seen the category of text, which is the display large text. The font family, in our case, we've chosen our own font family. For the font width, we set to regular, which has a value of 400. For the font size, we've actually set the font size to 57 pixels as recommended by material design. Then for the line height, we set that to 64 pixels. And then for the font tracking, which represents the letter spacing, we've set that to minus 0.25 pixels. So at this point, we are now done with our display large text, our display large row. And now we need to go to the next text, and which is the display medium text. So I'll come back to material design, and then I'm going to collapse this section for the display large text. And then go to the next text there, which is the display medium text. So I'll click on that. Now once I click on it, of course, all the properties of the text are going to be shown here. Click on this first one here, and you're going to have a summary of all the values that you actually need to customize that particular text for your type scale. So in this case, for the display medium text, we know that this category is display medium, which is fine. The font family, we've chosen our font family, so we will not be bothered about the font family anymore. Now we want to go over to the font width. Now in this case, for our display medium text, material design is letting us know that we should use a font width of 400, which is also regular. So I'll come over here, I'll select the display medium text and make sure that the font width is set to regular. As you can see in this case, it is set to regular, which is fine. Now I'll go back to material design and look for the next particular token value there, or the next property, which is the font size. Now for the font size, you can see that material design is letting us know that for a display medium text, to give it a font size of 45 pixels. So I'll come back to Figma and then change the size of this to 45 pixels. So I'll make this 45, which is fine. And then after the font size, I have the line height. In this case now, the line height is 52 pixels. So I'll come back here and then change line height value from auto to 52. And then I'll check for the next token value or property that I have there, which is the font tracking. And you can see that in this case, the font tracking or the letter spacing is set to 0. So I'll come back here and make sure that this is set to 0 pixels. So I'll put in 0 px. And that's fine. So with that, I am done with my display medium text. And I'll go to the next text now for the display category, which is the display small text. So I'm going to select this and then go to material design to see the token values that I use to actually configure the display small text. So while I have the display small text selected, I'll go back to material design and then make sure that I have display small expanded here. Now you can see that for the display small text, of course, like I said, click on the first result and you are going to see a summary of all the token values you need to actually configure that text. For the display small text, we have that for the font width, it's set to a value of 400, which is also regular. So I'll come back here and make sure that this is set to a font width of regular, which is fine. Then I'll go back to material design, and for the font size, it's letting me know that for the display small text, I should use a font size of 45 pixels. So I'll come back here, change this from whatever value I have here to 45, which is fine. Then I will go back to material design. For the line height, it says that I should use a line height of 52 pixels. So I'll come back here and then change the line height value from auto to 52, which is fine. And then I'll go back to material design. It says for the font tracking or the letter spacing, I should leave that set to 0 pixels. So I'll come back here and make sure that this is set to 0 pixels, and that's fine. Now with that, now we can see that we are now done with the display large text, the display medium text, and the display small text. So it's now for us to go to the next category of text that we have, which in this case are the headline text. So I'm going to select this, select this, select this, select this. Let me take them out and let me just use a copy of what I have here to create all the other text rows in this type scale. So I will make a copy of this and then bring it here. Let me select this and let me expand this a bit and then align it to the center, which is fine. And in this case, I will now be configuring the headline text, which in this case, I have headline large, I have headline small, then I have headline medium, then I have the headline small text. Now your headline text and your display text will not have the same size because the headline text are smaller than the display text, since the display text are the largest text on the screen. So how do I get the token values for my headline text? Now in order for us to do that, I'm going to first of all select this first one here that I have, which is the headline large text. Go back to material design and then collapse this section for the display styles. So now I'm looking at headline styles. So I'll come over here to where it says headline styles, click on it. And I have the 3 categories over here, which include the headline large for my desktop, headline medium for my tablet, and the headline small for mobile devices. So I'll come over here under headline large for desktop. I'll click on it. And from the results that come up, click on the very first option there, and then you have a summary of all the token values that you need to actually customize that particular headline large text. And you can see that in this case now, type of text is the headline large text, which is fine. Font name is Roboto. We already have our font family, so we are not bothered about this. Now for the font width for our headline large text, it says that we should give it a font width value of 400, which is the same as the font weight value of regular. So I'll come back here. While I have my headline large text selected, I'll make sure that the font weight is set to regular, which is fine. Then go back to material design. After the font weight, I have the font size. In this case, is 32 pixels. So I'll come over here, change this from whatever value I have there to 32. And that's fine. And then after that, I have a line height of 40. So I'll come back and change the line height value 40, which is fine. And after that, I have a font tracking of 0. So I'll come back here and give that a font tracking or letter spacing of 0 pixels. So this will be 0 px. And that's fine. So with that, we are done with the headline large text, and we are going to move on to the headline medium text. So for the headline medium text, I'll go to material design and see the token values that I use for this headline medium text. So I'll come back here and then make sure that I select the headline medium text. So for the headline large over here, I'm going to collapse that and then go to the headline medium text and expand that. Then click on this first result so you have a summary of all the token values that you need. So for the headline medium text, we're going to start from the font weight, since because this only talks about the category of text and this talks about the font family, which we have already treated. So we'll start with the font weight for this headline medium text. So the font weight over here, you can see it also has a value of 400, which is also set to regular, or which is also equivalent to regular. So I'll come back here and make sure that for my headline medium text, I have it equivalent to or set to regular. So now that I have my headline medium text set to regular, let's look at the other token values that we have there in material design. I'll come back here. I have seen that my font weight is set to a value of 400, which is regular, which is fine. And for the font size, it says I should give it a size of 28 pixels. So I'll come back to Figma, change the size of this to 28. That's fine. And after the font size, I have the line height, which is 36 pixels. So I'll come over here for the line height. I'll change that to 36. It's fine. And then it has a font tracking or letter spacing value of 0. So I'll come back here. And for the letter spacing value, I will make sure that here is set to 0 pixels, which is fine. So with that, I am done with the headline text. After the headline text, I will select the next text that I have there, which is the headline small text. So I'm done with the headline medium text, and now I'm going to the headline small text. So now that I have the headline small text selected, I'll come over here and then try to collapse the region for the headline large text. And now I'm going to go over to where it says headline small. So I'll click on this and then click on the first result there to have a summary of my token values. Now, in this case, the font weight is also set to regular, which is equivalent to a value of 400. So I'll come back here. My headline small text, I'll make sure I set to regular, which is fine. Then after that, I have a font size of 24 pixels. So I'll come back to Figma, change this from its size here. I'm going to put in 24 pixels, which is fine. And after that, I'll come back to the line height, which is 32. So I'll come to Figma and give this a line height of 32 pixels, which is fine. And after that, I have a font tracking or letter spacing value of 0 pixels. So over here, you can see that my letter spacing value is 0 pixels. So with that, I am done with the headline large, headline medium, and headline small text. Now what we are going to do is that in order for us to actually see the token values in terms of the size that we are actually referencing here in material design, I'll come back here, select each of these texts and put in their actual sizes close to them. So I will select display large text. We can see that for the display large text, we have a size of 57. I'm just going to write that beside it, 57. So we can know the size of this text. So I'll come over here. I'll put in the size of this text there. In this case, that's a font size of 45. I'll put in 45 there. Select the next text. In this case, it has a font size of, now this has a font size of 45 for the display medium text. For the display small text, it also has a font size of 45. Let's check that. I think we made a mistake there. Let's check the display small text. The display medium text has a font size of 45. Display small text should have a smaller font size. So I'll come back quickly to material design and check for the display small text. Let me expand the display section, go to the display small text. we can see that over here it has a font size of 36, right? So these are the font size of 36. It has a line height of 44. So let's confirm that. For our display small text, it has a font size of 36. So I'll come over here, change this to 36. I think we made a little error with that. Change this to 36. It has a line height of 44, which is fine. And then I'll check for other values like the font tracking is 0 pixels. Over here we have the letter spacing at 0 pixels, which is fine. And let's check for the font weight. In this case, it's also set to regular. And over here we have this set to regular. So that's for the display small text. So now that we've properly or correctly configured it, let's put in the size of this text close to it, which is 36. I'll just put in 36. Then I have something like this. Right, then for the headline text, we've already put in the token values for each of these headline texts. So I'll just come over here and just put the size close to it. So for the headline large, it has a value of 32 pixels. So I'll put in 32 there. Headline medium has a font size of 28. So I'll put in 28. You can see that over here it's set to 28, which is fine. I'll put in 28. Headline medium has a value of 24 pixels. So over here, you can see that the size is 24. I'll put in 24. So by writing the size close to it, you already know the sizes of each of these texts, and you have less tendency of making any errors, because of course a display large text should be bigger than a display medium text, and a display medium text should be bigger than a display small text. Now the same goes for the headline large, headline medium, and headline small. So now that we've put in the token values for display text, the headline text, now the next category of text we have are the title text, right? So I'm just going to align this properly to the center. Let me expand this a bit. So we have the display text and headline text settled. Now the next category of text are the title text. So I'll come over here and change this from headline large to title large, which is fine. Change this from headline medium, title medium, and I'll change this from headline small, title small. And now I'm going to look for the actual values of title large, title medium, and the title small text, because these are not the actual values. These are just copies that were made from the headline large values. So I'm going to select the title large text and then go to material design and look at the title row tokens. So I'll come over here to where it says title styles. Under title styles, I'm going to click on that, and of course first one here is title large text. I'll click on it and then click on the first result. So I have my summary of tokens here. So this is the title large style, right? Font family, we already know that. Then for the font width, in this case for title large, it says that we should give it a font width value of 400, which is also the same as setting it to regular. So I'll come over here. For the font width, I'll make sure that it is set to regular, which is fine. After that, for the font size, it's letting me know that I should give this particular text a font size of 22 pixels. So I'll come back here. For title large, this is going to be 22. And then I'll put the size close to it here. So this is 22, which is fine. Now, after that, let's look at other properties. The line height in this case is 28 pixels. So I'll come over here, change this from line height of 40 or whatever it is to 28, which is fine. And then letter spacing has 0 pixels. So I'll come over here and make sure that the letter spacing of this text is set to 0 px. So that's fine for title large. Next, we have title medium. So I'll select this and then come over to Figma and look for the token values for title medium text. So we have done for title large text. So let's go to where it says title medium. Click on the first option there, and now I have my token values here. Now for the font width in this case, it's letting me know that the title medium text should have a font width value of 500, right? And 500 represents medium. Okay, so now remember that we've been using regular for every other text here, and regular has a font width value of 400, right? So in this case, it's letting me know that I should give it a higher font width value, which in this case is 500, representing medium. So I'm going to come over here and I'll change this from regular to medium. Now, once I click on that drop down, you are going to be seeing all the font width values that we have here, right? We have extra light, regular, semi-bold, bold, and black. Now, for this particular font family that I've chosen, I do not have the medium option here. So what's going to happen is that after regular, I'm supposed to have medium. All right. If you choose any other font weight like Roboto, after regular, you are going to be seeing that the next heavier option that you have there is medium. But for this particular font family, after regular, what I have is semi-bold. Now, since I don't have the medium option here, for my own case, I'll just choose semi-bold as the next option or the next heavier option that I have there. So that's what I'm going to be using for my font weight in that particular case. Now, for my font size, of course, the font family that you may be choosing for your own project might have the medium option there, all right? But in my own case now, it doesn't have that medium option there. So I just choose the next heavier font weight, which in my case is semi-bold. Now, after that, the font size in this case is actually 16 pixels. So I'll come over here for my title medium text. I'll change this and give it a font size of 16, which is fine. Now, remember that the only value we are putting in here is the font size. So since this has a font size of 16 pixels, I'll come over here, change this now, make this 16. So it's clearly shown there. After the font size value, which is 16 pixels, you can see that the line height is 24. So I'll come over here, make sure that I set the line height here to 24. Let me select the entire text and then set the line height to 24. That's fine. And after that, the letter spacing value of font tracking is 0.15 px. So I'll come back here and change this from 0 pixels to 0.15 pixels. And that's fine. So with that, now we are done with the title medium text. We are going to move over to the next category, which is title small text. I'll select this and then come back here in material design and collapse this region. And then try to configure the title small text. So I'll come over here to where it says title small. Click on that. First, click on the very first result and have your summary of tokens here. So over here, for the font width for my title small text, it's also letting me know that I should give this a font width value of 500, which is medium in this case. So I'll come back here while I have this selected. After regular, I should have medium, but since I don't have medium, I'll choose the next option there, which is semi-bold. So I'll click on that, which is fine. Then after that, I have a font size of 14 pixels for this text. So I'll come back here and give this font size of 14 and then write the value just beside it. Right? I'm going to make this 14, which is fine. And then after the font size, it has a line height of 20 pixels. So I'll come back here and give it a line height of 20. And then it has a font tracking of 0.1 pixels, which is the same thing as the letter spacing. I'll change this 0.1 px. And that's fine. So with that, now we are done with configuring our token values for our title large, title medium, and title small text. I'm just going to place this here and then go to the next category of text. You can now see that we are done with the display text, we are done with the headline text, and we are also done with title category in terms of title large, title medium, and title small. After this, we have our body text. So I'm going to place this here and then change this from title to body text. So I'll come over here and this is going to be body large. And then this next one here is going to be body medium. And the next one here is going to be body small. Now I'm going to select the body large text and try to see token values as I have them here in material design. So I'll come over here, collapse the region for the title text and expand that of the body text. So I have body large, body medium, body small, as you can see over here. So I'll click on body large and then click on the first result that I have there. And you can see that for the body large text, if we begin with the font weight, you can see that it has a font weight value of 400, which is also regular as it is written here, right? You can see that typeface.font weight -regular, which is letting me know that the typeface or the font family, the weight of this particular typeface or font family for this text is what is regular. And regular has a value of 400. So in this case, I'll go back and set mine to regular. So I'll come back here for my body large text. I'll make sure that it's set to regular, which is fine. After that, look at the next token value, which in this case is the font size. And the font size over here is 16 pixels. So I'll come back here for my body large. I'll make this 16 pixels. This will be 16. which is fine. Now that font size will now be written close to it. So I'll come over here. In my case, I'll make this 16 so that I can always see the size of the text written beside it. So that's fine. So after that, I have a line height value of 24 pixels. So I'll come back here. My line height this will be 24. That's fine. After that, I have a font tracking or letter spacing of 0.5 pixels. So I'll come back here, change this to 0.5 px. So with that, now I'm done with the body large text. After the body large text, I have the body medium text. So select this and then go back to material design, collapse that of the body large text and select that of the body medium text. Select the first option there and you have your token values here. Now for the font width in this case, it's also given a value of 400, which is regular. So I'll come back here, make sure that this is set to regular for the body medium. Right now it's set to semi-bold, change that to regular and I'm fine. After that, I have the font size in this case is 14 pixels. So I'll come over here, give this a font size of 14 pixels, which is fine. I'm going to change this from 16 now to 14 because the size of this text is actually 14. That's fine. After that, I have a line height of 20. So I'll come over here, give this a line height of 20. That's fine. After that, I have a font tracking of 0.25 pixels. So I'll come over here. Font tracking or letter spacing is 0.25 px. So with that, I'm done with the body medium text. After that, I have the body small text. So I'll select this, come back here, and then collapse this region for body medium. And then go to where it says body small. So I'll click on that. And then click on the first result. So I have a summary of all the token values here. Now for my body small text, it's letting me know that the font weight should be given a value of 400, which is also regular. So I'll come back here, make sure that this is set to regular. So for the font weight over here, semi-bold, I'll change that to regular, which is fine. After that, I have the font size is 12 pixels. So I'll come over here, give this a font size of 12. And then make sure that the actual size is written beside it. So I can see it. I have 12, which is fine. After that, I have a line height of 16 pixels. So I'll come here and change the line height here to 16, which is fine. After that, I have a font tracking or letter spacing of 0.4 px. So I'll come back here and give this font tracking or letter spacing of 0.4 pixels. That's fine. Now with that, I am done with my body small text. So now I'm going to move to the next category of text, which is the label text. Let's just have this here. So I have display text done. I have the headline text category done. I have title large category done, and I have the body category done in terms of the body large, body medium, and body small. After this, I have another text rule, which is the label text. So I'll make a copy of this, place it here, and then in this case, I'll change this from body to label. So this is going to be label large. This is going to be label medium. And the last one here is going to be label small. Now let's check for token values as we have them in material design. So I'm going to select this particular label large text here and then go to material design and try to see how I can configure that in my type scale. So I'll come over here and then try to collapse the region for the body styles and expand that of label styles. So I have label large, label medium, and label small. So I'll click on the first one, which is label large. Then click on the first result there that shows me a summary of all the token values that I have here. Now it is important for you to know that you can actually check each of these token values one after the other. For example, if I actually want to know the font family that it belongs to, I can just come over here, click on this, and you can see font family in this case is Roboto, right? Like I said, you can always change the font family depending on the font family that you want to use for your own project. If I want to know the size, I can come over here, click on this, and automatically, in this case, it's telling me about the font weight. If I want to know the size, if I click on this, it's telling me about the size. So in this case now, we have the properties of this particular text, right? Actually displayed here one after the other. But to get a summary of all the properties, just click on the first result there, and the summary of all the properties will be presented to you, just like we have been doing it from the very first display large and display medium and display small category of text. So now that we've actually gotten to this region for the label large text, I'll come over to where it talks about the font weight. Now for a label large text, it says that you use a font weight value of 500, which is medium. Now for the font family I'm using, I do not have that option of font weight, right? So I will simply click on that drop down and select the next option that I have. Since I don't have medium, I have semi-bold as my next option. In my case, I'll just put in semi-bold, right? Like I said, your font family might have that particular option for what? For medium. That because the weight values that we have here, they are different for different font families. Some font families have more weight values and some font families have less weight values. So in this case, since I don't have medium, I'm choosing the next option, which is semi-bold, and that's fine. After that, I'm going to come over here to the font size for my label large text. You can see that the font size here is 14 pixels. So I'll come over here, change this from 16 to 14 pixels. This will be 14. Then I'll come over here and make sure that I put in that value there, 14, so I can always see the size. After that, we have the line height is 20 pixels. So I'll come back here and change this 20, which is fine. After that, I have the font tracking or letter spacing is 0.1 px. So I'll come over here, change this to 0.1 pixels. And that's fine. Now after that, I have no other token value there, which simply means that I am now done with this particular text. So after this, I'll select the next text, which is a label medium text, and then go to material design. I try to see the token values for the label medium text. So I'll come over here, click on label medium, and then I have all the different properties that I have here. Now click on this option here that says label medium. Now you can see that in this case, we have a first option here that says none. If I click on that, you can see I don't have a summary of my token values here. But if I click on this option here that says label medium, I have a summary of all my token values here. Or you can decide to actually configure that text by taking the token values one after the other, like I am doing now, right? So this is the next token value, this is the next, this is the next, just like that. But in my case, I'll just click on this to get the summary. So I have my label medium text, and for the font weight, it says I should give it a font weight value of 500, which is medium. In my case, I don't have medium. I'll come over here, just go to the next one. In my case, I have semi-bold. That's fine. After that, I have the font size. The font size here is 12 pixels, so I'll come back here, make sure that this is set to 12 pixels for the font size. I'll put in 12 pixels. That's fine. Change this from 14 to 12. Take this, make that 12. So now I have the size written beside it, which is fine. The line height in this case is 16 pixels. So I'll come over here, give this a line height of 16. That's fine. And then I have my font tracking is 0.5 pixels. So I'll come back here, give this a font tracking or letter spacing of 0.5 px. That's fine. After that, I am done with this label medium text. I'll go to the last category there, which is the label small text. Select it and then come over here. I'll collapse this, and after collapsing that, I'm going to select label small text. So I'll come over here to where it says label small, expand that, and then look for this particular layout or option that says label small. Click on it, and you have your summary of tokens there, right? Then for the font weight in this case, it's also set to 500, which is medium. Now the font family I'm using does not have the medium weight value, so I'll take the next weight value, which is semi-bold in my own case. After that, I have the font weight in this case 11 pixels, so I can come over here, make this 11, I change this value to 11, which is the weight just written beside it, which is fine. After that, I have my line height, which is 16 pixels, so I'll come back to Figma and give that text line height of 16. So I'll come over here. You can see that the line height in this case is already 16. That's fine. And after that, I have a letter spacing of 0.5 pixels. So I'll come back here and change this to 0.5 px. And that's fine. Now with that, we have now actually configured all the different rows or category of text that we have, from our display text to our headline text, to our title text, to our body text, and down to our label text. And also we have the sizes of each of these texts written beside them. So for display large text, this is the size according to material design. For the display medium text, this is the size according to material design. For the display small text, this is the size according to material design. The same thing for the headlines, the same thing for the title text, the same thing for the body text, and the same thing for the label text. Now, since we actually got these values for material design, I'll come over here. For the weight values, I'm going to put in MD weight values. So for the weight values in this case, and by weight values, we are talking about if it is set to regular, if it is set to bold, or if it's set to semi-bold, just like we've been doing. So in this case, since we actually adhered to the weight values of material designs, for the weight values, I'm just going to put in MD weight values, which MD representing material design weight values. Which simply means that in this case, we are using the material design weight value. So that's for that. So now we've actually come up with a type scale that we could actually use by referencing the material design type tokens. All right, we have the display large, all done. We have the headline large, all done. We have the title large, all done. The same thing for the medium cases. We have the body text, all done. And also we have label styles, all done. Now this is actually a type scale that you could actually use when you are coming up with a style or a typography style in your style library. But like we know, material design is a guide, which simply means that it's not very compulsory that you must use these exact values that you actually got from material design. You could actually use these exact values, or you could also tweak them, okay, by using values in the neighborhood of these values that I have here, which simply means that I could decide to use these exact values that I got from material design and use them to create my type scale or my typography system. Or if I don't want to use these exact values, I could use these values that I have here as a reference or as a guide to actually tweak or create a range of values that I could also use for my own particular project. So in this case, let's make this text a bit larger so we can actually see them. Now these are just label text, right? So I can give them any size. That's set to 20. Let's make that 38 pixels. Come over here, change this to 38. Right? So let me know that this is actually me creating my typography system. And then for the weight values, let me bring this down a bit and let me change the size of that. Let's say I have something like this. So you could decide to use these exact values that we got for each of these text rows, or you could decide to actually come up with a range of values in your own case. So this is the typography system as recommended by material design. So over here, I'll change this to typography system. I'll just put in material design. Now what I want to do for my case is that instead of using these values directly, like I said, you could actually use these values directly and create a type scale, right? But if you don't want to use these values, you could actually use this as a guide to customize your own values. So I want to use this as a guide to customize my own values. So I'll come over here, select this, and then create a copy and place it here. So over here, I'm going to be coming up with a range of values that I could use using these material design values as a guide. Now, in order for me to come up with a range of values that will enable me customize a typography system or a type scale for myself, first thing I want to do is that I want to change every odd number value in this type scale to an even number value. So over here, I have 57. I'm going to make this 56. Over here, I have 45. I'm going to make this 44. Right? Now, removing one PS doesn't change much. Like I said, what we got for material design or what we got for material design is a guide, right? You can always tweak it by using values in the neighborhood of that particular guide. So I'll come over here. Here I have 11. This is just me actually trying to create an even number system for my typography skills. So it's not very compulsory. You can decide to use those exact values if you want to. It doesn't really make any difference. Now that I have an even number system, and the next thing I want to do is I want to create a range of values that I could possibly use just in case I don't want to use these exact values here that I got from material design. And in order for me to create that range of values for my display text, like in this case for the display large text. Now display text are very, very large text, which simply means that if I actually want to create a range of values, I will decide the incremental amount which I'm going to be creating that range of values. Now what I mean by that is let's go to any particular web page mockup. Now if I come over here, and because this is a display text, so for this display text, if I select it and I try to tweak the values that I have here, over here I have 72px at this point. Now if I to change this from 72px to, let's say, 70px, let's say I am moving in increments of 2px or reducing by 2px. If I change this to 70px, you can see that there is no much change between 70px and 72px for this particular last screen, right? If I change this from 72 to, let's say, 68px, in as much as there's a change, there's no much change. So if I want to see a very large change, instead of moving in values of 2px or 4px, and the original value was 72, I could decide to move from 72 to, let's say, 64px. Right, then from 64, let's say I move from 64 to 56px. Now you can see that in order for me to have a reasonable change in the value of the text for such a large text or for such a display text, I have to be moving in much larger values than 2px or 4px. In this case, now I am moving in values of 8px. So if I move from 56, for example, let's say a value of 64, right, I have a reasonable change. From 64, I move to 72. I have a reasonable change. When I'm moving from 72 to 74, you can see that there's no much change, right? Or from 72 to, let's say, 70px, there's no much change. So for large text like this, or for our display text, what's going to happen is that I'm going to be moving in values of 8px in order for me to create my range of values, or to come up with my range of values. So in this case, I have 56px. To create a range of values that I could use, instead of just using one particular value, I could decide that, okay, I have 56 already. I could add 8px to that to make that 64, which is fine. I could also add 8px to this to make that 72. Now this is actually a good range of values that I could use for my display large text. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the display medium text. Now this is 44. I'm going to add 8px to that, and I'm going to have 52. Then I'll add 8px to that, and I'm going to have 60, which is fine. So you can see that for my display large text, I am moving in incremental values of 8px. The same thing for the display medium text. So for my display large, I could use a value of 56 for my display large text. I could use a value of 64 for my display large text. I could use a value of 72 for my display large text. If I come back to this particular mockup and let's look at this display large text, I could come over here, select it, and then come over to the size and then change this, for example, to 56. You can see that this text is still looking good as a display large text. I could select it, change it to 64. You can see that this text is still looking good as a display large text. I could come over here, change this to 72. You can see that this text is still looking good as a display large text, right? So in each case, we have the text still looking good as a display large text. So you could actually use 52 in this case. You could use 64. You could use 72. You could use any value within or in the neighborhood of this value that is given to you by material design. All right. Now it's not very compulsory that you must also increase yours in incremental values of 8px. I could decide that my initial value could be 56. My next one could be 60. Right. My next one could be 64. Just like that. Right. It is not a rule that is set in stone. It is just a guide. All right. So for my display large text, I decided to increase the original value there by, first of all, 8px to give me 64, and also increase again by another 8px to give me 72, which is fine. My display medium text, I decided to do the same thing. But take note of the fact that material design gave us a particular size, and they gave us a line height that actually corresponds to that size, right? Because as you are increasing or changing the size of the text, you may most likely change the line height value of that text, right? Now, for this case, now you can see that while the value is set to 57 pixels, that's a line height of 64 pixels. So for very large text in this case, you can see that the difference between the line height and the width is about 7px, which is fine. In this case, while the size is set to 45 pixels, you can see that the line height is set to 52 pixels. That's about 7 pixel difference again. So as you are changing the values of these particular sizes in your range, for example, if I select this and I decide to use, let's say, 56 pixels, I could decide that I want the difference between the size and the letter spacing to be 7 pixels as well. Or if you are going with an even number system, I've decided that the difference would be about 8 pixels. So why this is 56, I could come over here, change that value to, let's say, a value of 64 pixels. I just adding 8 to this value that I have here, and you can see that I have my text looking good. Or if you decide that you don't want to use this particular value, if I want to use a size of 64 for my display large text, if I put in 64, I'll come over here, add 8 to that value. In this case, my line height could be, say, 72. You can see that the text is still looking very good. If I decide to use a size of 72 pixels for my display large text, I'll come over here. For my line height, I'll add 8 pixels to this and make this, let's say, 80. You can see this is looking really good. All right, like you can see that all what we are doing is that we are just following the guide, just as it is given to us by what? By material design. So for my display large text, I have this as my range by adding 8px to the original value that I have there to actually have this range. My display medium text, I did the same thing. Now for my display small text, now know that display large text is for very large screens. Display medium is for screens like tablets, but display small is for mobile devices, right? And mobile devices do not have a very large breakpoint. So for that reason, for my display medium text, if I want to create my range, instead of increasing the value, I will reduce the value by 8 pixels as well. So I'll just come over here. I'm going to have, let's say, from 36, I could have 28, right? This is just me creating a range for my mobile device, and then I could have 20 pixels. So I have 20, 28, 36 for my display medium text. Now, for my display small text, for my display large and my display medium text, I have to increase those values because those are very large screens. But for my display small text, this is a mobile device, right? So you want to make sure that you don't put in very, very large or extremely large values for your mobile device to play your display text. Otherwise, you're going to be having values that are overflowing in the screen. So in this case, this is going to be the range of values that I'll be using for my display large. This is going to be the range of values for my display medium. This is going to be the range of values for my display small text. Now remember that we are using the material design values as a guide. Like I said, you can decide to use this to create your own type scale, or decide to actually pick a range that you could use to create or use to make your designs. In this case, for this range, we are going to be picking a particular value. So we could decide to still pick that of material design, or we could decide to pick any of these values that we have here. So for my display large text, all I did was made this an even number, added 8px to it, and I got this range. My display medium text, made this an even number, added 8px to it, and I got this range. For my display small text, I decided to remove 8px each from these values that I have here consecutively, and I got this particular range. So with that, I have a range of values for my display large, my display medium, and my display small text. And the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my headline large text. Now remember that at this point, we've not actually decided what exact value we are going to be using for the display large text or the display medium or the display small text. We are just actually creating a range. From that range, we are going to decide the exact value that we want to use. If we are going to be using the first values in that particular range, or the middle values, or terminal values. Now that I'm done with my display text for my display large, my display medium, and my display small, I'm going to go over to my headline large, headline medium, headline small, and try to create a range as well. So over here, I'll come over here and just put in, I'll increase this by 8 as well. So this will be 40 pixels. Increase this by 8 again. This will be 48 pixels. That's fine. Then I'll come over here. And then for my headline medium, that's 28. If I add 8 to that, that will be 36. It's fine. If I add 8 to that, that will be 44, which is also fine. Then for my headline small text, just like I did for my display small text, I could also decide to do the same thing and remove 8 pixels from this particular size that I have here. Since the headline small is going to be for a mobile device that has small breakpoints, so I could come over here and put in a value of, let's say I remove 8 pixels from that, that becomes 16. Move on that 8 pixels, this becomes 8. And I have something like this. Right? So these are going to be the values for my headline small text. But you can see that these values that I have here, 8 pixels, 16 pixels for my headline small text, are already here in my label large, label medium, and label small text, and my body large, body medium, and body small text, because we're not going to be creating a range for this. We are going to be using this exactly as we got them from material design. Now, since this range of values here, right, or this small range of values are already here and they're already fixed here, in this case, instead of reducing by 8 pixels, since this is a headline text, I might want to reduce by a smaller amount. So instead of 8 pixels for my own case, I could decide to reduce by 4 pixels, 6 pixels, 2 pixels. So instead of actually reducing by 8, I'll come over here and then try to just look for values within this neighborhood. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a robust typography system, right, that has values in different ranges, right? I have values, let's say between 10 to 18, 18 to between 10 to 20, 20 to 30, just like that. So in this case, instead of reducing by 8 and having values that I already have here, what I'm going to do is that for my headline small text, I'm going to be reducing by, let's say, very little incremental values of 2 pixels. So I'll just come over here and I'll just put in, this is 24, to make this 22. Like I said, there's no rule that is set in stone. This is just me trying to create a robust typography system, right? So I could also make this, remove under 2 ps to make this 20. So I have, for my headline small, I just remove 2 pixels from the original value. So this is 24, this is 22, this is 20, which is fine, right? So with that, I'm done with the headline small text. Now I'm going to come over now to my title large text. Now remember that for our display text, majorly we're removing 8 pixels from display large, display medium. We're adding 8 pixels to this display large text. We added 8 to this display medium to have this range. Therefore, the display small, which is actually a mobile device, we decided to remove instead of adding. So we got this. For headline text, we added 8 pixels each to the original value to get this range. The headline medium, the same thing. But for the headline small, we decided to just take values that are within the neighborhood of the original value by just reducing by 2 pixels, which is fine. Now, for our title text, what we are going to do is that our display text and our headline text are much larger than our title text. So for that reason, we're adding 8 pixels to actually get this range, or removing 8 pixels to get the display small range. For our title text, we decide to add or remove a smaller value than 8 pixels. So for my title text, instead of actually removing or adding a value as large as 8, for my title text, I could come over here. I could decide to add 4 pixels in this case instead of adding 8 pixels, since my title text are way smaller than my display text. So I'll come over to my title large text. This is 22. I'm just going to add 4 pixels to it instead of 8 pixels because the title text are smaller than display text. Instead of 8 pixels for my title text, I'll put in an incremental value of 4 pixels. So 22, this becomes 26, which is fine. And this becomes 30, which is fine. I'll go to title medium. This is 16. I'm increasing by 4 for my title, all my title text. So this will be 20. It's fine. This will be 24, which is also fine. Then I'll go to my title small text. And for my title small text, I'll simply come over here. And then in this case, I'm going to just add that same 4 pixels to it. So I'll make this 14 plus 4, that's 18, plus 4, that's 22. Now I have this range for my title small text. Now the guide here is, this is the guide in trying to create this particular scale. Display large text or display text are very large text. So for my display large text, that's going to be in a desktop device. So for that reason, I decided to increase the values by 8 in order for me to have a good range. My display medium text is going to be in a tablet device. So I also decided to increase the values by 8, which is fine. And for my display small text, I was supposed to increase the values as well from the original value of 36 that I got. But considering the fact that this display small text is actually going to be in a mobile device, if I continue to increase the values in this case, I'm going to be having very large values that may overflow on the screen. So for that reason, instead of increasing the values, since it's a mobile device, I decided to break it down to get values that will fit well within the screen size, which is fine. Then I went to my headline text. Just like I added the same 8 pixels here, I came over here. I added the same 8 pixels here for my headline large text. For my headline medium text, to get the range, I added the same 8 pixels here, which is fine. Then for my headline small text, now instead of adding, I'm taking my values upward as well, so as to give me values that will overflow on the screen. I decided to also come down, just like I came down here, right? I decided to reduce the value. So for my display small text, I had to actually reduce the values. For my headline small text, I also reduced the value. Just that I took values within the neighborhood because I already had values here for my body large text in terms of 16 pixels, 14 pixels, 12 pixels. So I wanted to avoid repetition. So instead of actually reducing by 8, I decided to just take values that were very close to the original one, which is fine. My title large text, I could also decide that just like as I was increasing by 8 pixels here for this these categories, I could decide that for my title large text, I also increase by 8 pixels, but title large text is way smaller than the display large text, right? And it's also very small compared to the headline large text. So for that reason, I decided that I want to reduce, or I want to increase this particular text. Instead of by 8 pixels, I want to increase by 4 pixels. So my title large, I increase by 4 pixels to get this range. Title medium, I increase by 4 pixels to get this range. Now for my title small text, I could have also decided that just like I was reducing the values here for the display small and for the headline small, I could have decided that I wanted to reduce this value here also. But you can see that for the title small text, the value that Material Design gave us was already 14 pixels. Alright, that's small enough. So I could actually take that up and still get values that will fit in within a mobile device, right? So in that case now, I decided that I wanted to add 4 pixels to this to actually have this range. Now what this does is that it gives me a robust typography system to avoid repetition of type values or to avoid repetition of sizes, so that I can have a variation of sizes that I could actually use or pick from in my type scale. So now I have created the title small text by just adding 4 pixels to the original value that I had there, which was 14 pixels. So I have a range of values. Now after that, I am now done with a range of values for my headline large text. I am done with the range of values for my title text, and I'm done with the range of values for my display text. Right? So now I have my body text and my label text left. Now for my body text, I'm going to be leaving this as 16 pixels for the body large. I'm going to be leaving this as 14 pixels for body medium, and I'm going to be leaving this as 12 pixels for body small, right? These are what I'm going to be using for my body text, because on most websites, the description text, for example, if I should come to this website, let us inspect the description text and let's see the size of this description text. So I'm going to bring up CSS Peeper extension and then hover on this text. And when I hover on the text, you can see that for the description text in this case, let's see if we can actually get the font size. You can see that the font size over there is 14 pixels, right? So we have a description text with the font size of 14 pixels for this website. If I go to another website, let's see what the description text or body text is for any of these websites. And the description text is the same thing as the body text, right? So if I come over here, bring up the CSS Peeper extension, over on this, you can see that in this case, description text here is 16 pixels, right? For the original website that we inspected, gave us a description text of 14, right? Then for this website now, it's giving us a description text of 16. So these values are usually the values that are used for our body text or our description text. So for that reason, we're not going to be creating a range here. For our body large text, we'll be using 16. For our body medium, we'll be using 14. For our body small, we'll be using 12. The same thing for the label text. For label large, we'll be using 14. For the label medium, we'll be using 12. And for the label small, we're going to be using 10. Right? So we are only creating a range of values for our display text, our headline text, and our title text. So since these are actually way larger than the body text and the label text, now that we've created a range of values, we can decide to use these values that we got here for material design, and we are fine in creating our type scale. Or if you don't want to use these exact values, you can decide to create a range of values like this, right? And then pick one value as your display large value, pick one as your display medium, pick one as your display small value, and use that as your type scale. So now I am done with my range of values. So I'll come over here and just change this to range of values. That would be the range of values from which I'm going to pick the exact values that I'll be using for my type scale. So I'll select this again, make a copy, and then bring it here, which is fine. Now we've seen that for our display large text, we can use 56, 64, or 72. So if I go to, let's say, a particular mockup design and try that out, I'll select this, I'll make this 56 like we did before, 56, and let's see what we have. You can see this is still looking good, right? I can put in 64, still looking good. I can put in 72, and it's still looking good. Alright, so that's for our display text. Now if I come over to the display text for a mobile device, I have 20, 28, 36. Let's try that out for a mobile mockup and let's see what we have. Now this is the display text over here. I can come over here, select this, right, and make this, let's say, 20 pixels. Alright, and you can see it's still looking good. I can make it 26. Still looking good. Or I can make it, let's look at the range of values that we have there for the mobile device. I have 20, 28, 36. Okay, so I've tried 20, that was looking good. So I can make this 28. Come over here. At 28 is still looking fine. Now I can make it 36. And you can see it's still looking fine. Now the only thing that you might be tweaking would be the line height property. Alright, so if I should make this 20, for example, and this is what I have, you can see that there's like more space between this first line and second line of text, right? Which is looking, it's not looking very good in that case. So what you can do is, if you decide to use 20 for your display text, you can come over here, tweak the line height property. So we've seen that a difference of 8 often looks good, right? Just like we saw from the material design guide. So I can come over here. If this is 20 for the size, I'll make this 28 for the line height. Let me select the entire text and give it a line height of 28. And you can see that now looks very good, right? Or I can select it, I can come over here, change the size from what I have, which is 20, I can make that 28, right? In this case, I'm going to change line height property from 28. By adding 8 to it, I'm going to have 36. You can see this looks good. Or I can come over here and make this 36 for the size. In this case, I'll come to the line height and add a value of 8 px, make it 44. And this is looking fine. All right. So what you could do is, when you actually pick a value, you are not using those values for material design, which are these values here. Because these values here, material design already gave us the size and as well as other token values like the line height that correspond with each other. All right. But if you are not using this and you want to actually come up with a range of values, then know that more often than not, you are going to be tweaking this line height property that I have over here. So now that I have my range of values, I actually want to now pick a value from this range of values that I'm going to be using as my own reference for my type scale. So to do that, since I want to pick values as my reference, I'll come over here and then I'll select this and I'll make this my reference values. I'll just put in reference, right? Then I'll come to the display large text and decide if I want to go with these values that I have here, right? Which simply means I could decide that for my display large text, I'll take 56. That simply means for display medium, I could take 44. For display small, I'll take 20. For headline large, I'll take 32. Headline medium, I'll take 28. That's me taking these first values that I have here, right? Or I could decide to take these central values that I have here, or I could decide to take these terminal values that I have over here. Any one you take is actually fine. Now for my case, I'm going to be taking these central values that I have over here. So for my display large text, I'm going to be taking or selecting a value of 64 for my display large text. So I'll come over here, select this, and then come over here, change the size now to 64 px. This is what I want, right? And then once I change that size to 64, I'll come to the line height property because I am now changing the size from what I got in material design. If, for example, you decide to go with this first category, you can decide to just leave the line height property the way it is. But since I am changing the size and I'm taking 64, that is me creating my own type scale. I'll put in 64 here. And then I'll come over to the line height, add 8 to that size value. So 64 plus 8 becomes 72. That's fine. Now this is what I'm going to be using as my display large text. So in this case, I've changed the size to 64. So I can take all this out if I want to. And then just leave a value of 64 there, letting me know that for my display large text, I'm taking 64. Now for my display medium text, I'm taking the central value, so I'm going to be taking 52 here. So while I have this selected, come over here. In my case, I'll make this 52, which is fine. And then add 8 to this value. So my line height is going to be 60. So as to make the text look good. That's fine. So I'll come over here and take out all this. So I'm using a size of 52 for my display medium text. That's fine. Now for my display small text, I'll select it. I'm taking the central value, so I'm taking 28. So I'll come over here, make that 28, which is fine. And then, of course, add 8 to this to give me something like 36, which is also fine. Now, adding 8 is not a rule that is set in stone, right? We just saw that material design for these very large values had a difference of 7 px between size and line height, and we decided to actually follow that guide. All right, so that's that. You can decide to add 6 to it if you want to. All right, so that's for that. But in our case now, we're adding 8 pixels to the size so as to get the line height. So this is 28. If I add 8 to that, I have 36 for the line height, which simply means I am now done with this text and I've made my choice. So I'll come over here, remove all this. and then leave that size and letting me know that I actually took a size of 28 pixels, which is fine. So with that now, I've actually come up with a type scale for my display text. My display large is going to be 64, my display medium will be 52, my display small will be 28, which is actually fine. I'll come to my headline text as well, and since I took the central values here for my display text, I'll come to my headline text and also take the central values here. So for my headline large, in my case, I'm going to be taking a value of 40. So I'll come over here, take 40 pixels, which is fine. And then I'll make the line height 48. You now know why I'm making that 48. Alright, so I'll come over here and then remove all these other sizes that I have here. Now that's fine. I'll come to my headline medium text, select it. Central value there is 36. So I'll come over here, take 36 pixels, which is fine. And then, of course, I'm going to add 8 to that. So I'll have 44 as my line height value. So I'll put in 44 there and then take out these other values since I'm only taking the central values. That's fine. My headline small text, I'll come over here. I'll take 22. So I'll come over here, take 22, which is fine. Add 8 to that. I'll make my line height 30 pixels. That's fine. And then remove all these other values that I have here. So with this now, I'm done with my headline text and I now know the exact sizes I'm going to be using in my design for my headline text, right? So after that, I will come over to my title text. So I'll come over here, select this, right? And then my title text or my title large text, I'll take 26. I'll come over here, take 26, which is fine. Just decide to add 8 pixels to this as well. So I'll have 34, all right? And then remove all these other sizes that I have here. Since I have now chosen 26 to be the size of my title large text. Now that's fine. I'll come over here to my title medium text, right? Select it, and then I'll make that 20, all right? And then take out, make the letter spacing, let's say 28 pixels. Let me select the text now, make this 28, which is fine. And then take out these other sizes that were there. So that's fine. For my title small text, I'll take the central one as well, which is 18, which is fine. Add 8 to that, that will give me 26 for my line height, which is fine. Then take out these other sizes that I had there. So with that now, I have actually created my type scale for my display large, display medium, display small. I've created for the headline region, I've created for the title text. And I know that for my body text and my label text, I'm actually going to be using the exact values I got for material design, since these are the sizes that I use for bodies and label text more often than not, right? So for that reason, I now have a type scale which I can use for my own design. And this type scale is referred to as the reference scale, right? So this is the type scale which I can use for my own design project. So now that I have a type scale that I can use for my own design project, this is going to be my reference type scale. So I'll select it and then come over here to the layers panel. Now this is no longer material design type scale, right? This is mine. So I'll come over to where I wrote typography system, material design. I'll just take that out and put in reference. Right? So this is my own reference type scale. Now that I have my reference, it is time for us to create typography system, because I now have a reference type scale that I could use. Now to create the typography system, I'm going to take this reference type scale and I'll bring it over here. Now the typography system will be comprised of reference styles and then it will be comprised of system styles. Now the reference styles will be the box styles or a combination of different styles that the design team at any point can pick from. Alright, they will just exist there so that anytime the design team wants to actually pick a style, they can actually, or anytime the design team wants to pick a new style, let's say when they are doing maintenance or when they are doing updates, they can always go to the reference style and pick a new style. However, we are going to have system styles. Now, system styles are the styles that are actually going to be used in the design of the website project or the design of the app or in the design of whatever project that you are working on. So let's see how to create the reference styles and let's see how to create the system styles. Now remember that while we were referencing material design, we're meant to understand that some of these fonts that we have here or some of these texts, we're actually giving a font weight of regular. So if I come over here, select this and I come over here, you can see this font weight is regular. While some had a font weight of medium, like in this case, or for my case, some had a font weight of semi-bold. So we already have mixed font weight here from what we got in material design. So before you create your reference style from this particular reference type scale that you've gotten, before you actually create other references, the first thing that you want to do is that you want to make sure that every text in this particular reference type scale has the same font weight, right? So instead of having a mixture of regular and bold or semi-bold, I want to change everything in here to regular. Now to do that, you could actually select each of these texts, right, one after the other, and then come over here and change any of them to regular. Now if I select all these and I come over here and I select, let's say I select this, you are going to see that as I come to this region for the font weight, you can see that it shows me that the font weight is actually mixed. Let me take that out. It shows me that the font weight is mixed, right? So you could select each of them or select all of them and come over here and change that from mixed to any particular font weight that you want. You can see as I hover on this, automatically all the selected ones are actually changing. So you could actually do that and change them manually from this properties panel. Alternatively, a faster way you could do that is just select this particular frame that contains all the text. Now I've selected this particular frame containing all the text. I want all the text here to have the same font weight. I want all of them to be regular, or I want all of them to be bold, or I want all of them to be semi-bold, right? So what I'm going to do is, now that I have it selected, I'm going to come over to my layers panel and close to this Figma icon. There's a drop down there. Click on that drop down. Once you click on it, you are going to see a label that says text, right? Once you over on that label that says text, come over here and you are going to have the option to make everything in this layout bold, right? Now there's no option to make it regular, but what we are going to do is that we are going to click on bold. Once you click on bold, we'll come back and then click on it again, and automatically everything here is going to be changing to a regular text. So let me come over here, click on bold. Once you click on bold, you can see that it has now made some of the text bold. Now it's not making all the text bold, right? It has only made some of the text bold. Now what I want is, I don't even want a bold font weight. I want everything to be regular. So while you have it selected, go back and perform the same action again. Click on that drop down, come back to where it says text and click on bold again. Once you click on bold again, automatically everything inside this frame is going to be changing to a regular text. As I click on this, automatically everything in here is now a regular text. You can now see that if I select this, I come over here, it says regular, right? If I select any of these text, I come over here, you can see it's regular. If I select this text, I come over here, you can see it's regular. So we now have every text inside this particular reference set to regular. So this is going to be for our reference style. So I'll come over here, select this, make a copy, and then bring it here. So we know that we are creating our reference styles. All right? So this is going to be our reference styles. Now this is going to be a reference 1. So I could just come over here and change this to reference 1, right? Or select this frame, come over here and change this to typography reference 1, typography system reference 1, and that's fine. So now that we have our first reference style, how do we create other references? Your reference styles are actually variations of your font weight, right? So to know the number of references that you could create, what you could do is select any text there, because now the font family we are using is Italian Web. Also, once you select any text, go and look at the options that you have for the font weight. If I click on this drop down, right now, of course, all the text here are set to regular, but the options I have here, I have the option for extra light, I have the option for light, I have the option for regular, I have the option for semi-bold, I have the option for bold, I have the option for black. So these variations of font weight here are actually giving you the different references that you could have for these particular type scale that you're about to create. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So you could decide to create for all 6 and use them as your reference styles. You could decide to create for just 4 and use them as your reference styles. It all depends on what you want as the designer of that particular project. So in this case, now we are going to be creating for all the 6. right? We already have a reference for regular, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll select this particular frame and then make a copy and place the copy very close to it. Now we are creating our reference styles. So this is for regular, which is fine. So I can just put in reference 1. I'll put in a brackets. Now I'll put in regular. Now that's fine. All right. Now after regular, in this case now I want fonts that are heavier or bolder than those of regular text. So what do? Now you could actually check for the next one that you're supposed to have. After regular over here, I have semi-bold, right? But instead of selecting all the text and changing them one after the other, just select the frame. Once you select this frame, come back to this drop down, click on it, click on this label that says text, right? Or over on this label that says text, and come to where it says adjust. So once I hover and adjust, you can now see it says there's an option that says increase font weight. If I click on increase font weight, it's going to increase the font weight of all the text inside this frame to the next available font weight for this particular font family, right? So after regular, for this font family, we do not have medium. If we had medium, if I click on increase font weight, it's going to change all the text to medium. But since we don't have medium or the medium option for this particular font family, if I click on increase font weight, it's going to change this to the next available font weight, which is semi-bold. So if I click on this, automatically you can now see that all the text here are now in semi-bold font weight. If I select any of them and I come over here, you can see it says semi-bold, right? So this is us creating reference 2. So this is going to be reference 2. All right? Or you can put it reference 2 and then in brackets you can put in semi-bold. So you know the font weight that you are working with. So this is semi-bold. That's fine. Alright, so that's fine. Now this is reference 1 regular, this is reference 2 semi-bold. That's fine. I can select this and then make a copy, place it here, right? We're going to be fast about this now. And then go for the next reference by selecting or keeping this frame selected. Come over here, click on that drop down, go to where it says text, over on it, go to where it says adjust, over on that, and then it says increase font weight again. It's going to now increase it to the next available font weight. If I click on that, I have the next available font weight, right? To check that, just select any text in there, right? I have this as bold, so I'll select this. And I have reference 3, and this is going to be for bold, which is fine. Then make another copy. Like I said, we are creating our reference styles. Place it here, and now this is going to be reference 4. What font weight will it be? I don't know yet, so I'm going to select that particular frame, click on that drop down again, go to where it says text, over on it, come over to where it says adjust, and just click on increase font weight. It will continue to increase the font weight until it gets to the last font weight that is available for that particular font family. So I'll click on increase font weight, and of course, it has now increased the font weight. This will most likely be black. So select a text there, and you can see that this is now black. So I'll come over here, change this from bold to black, which is fine. Now, am I going to have a heavier font than this? Let's see. Let me make a copy of this and then let me bring it here. Let's see if I can actually have any heavier font than this. While I have this frame selected, come over to this drop down again. Go to where it says text and then go to where it says adjust and go to where it says increase font weight. If I click on increase font weight, if there is still a font weight after black for this particular font family, it's going to actually increase the font weight, right, by making the text heavier. But if there's no font weight after black, what's going to happen is that there will be no change in the text. So if I click on increase font weight, you can see that there's no change in this particular text that we have. If I select it, it's still set to black. That is because if I check here for the weight options, you can see that black over here is the last font weight that we have. There's no font weight after it. So for that reason, I can no longer increase this beyond this particular font weight. And that is why even after typing on increase font weight, this does not increase anymore. So I'll select this and then delete it since I already have that particular reference black font variation there. So I have references for regular, I have references for semi-bold, I have references for bold, and I have references for black. Now, there are also lighter variations before regular. So what you could do is I could select this and then make a copy, place it here, right? because of course we have lighter variations before regular. If I select a text here and I check my font weight, you are going to see that I have light and extra light. So if you want to create references for that, what you could do is select the frame for regular, highlight it, and when you have it selected, come over to that same drop down and then go to where it says text and then go to where it says adjust. And instead of increasing font weight, I want a font weight less than regular, so I will go over to where it says decrease font weight. Once I click on this, it's going to give me a lighter font weight than regular. So if I select this now, and you can see that over here I have light, so this is going to be light. Right now, forget about the name of the reference. We are going to rename each of them. Then after this, I can make a copy of this, bring it here, which is fine. And then if I have much lighter ones than this, I'll come back to that drop down, go to where it says text, go to where it says adjust, and then decrease the font weight again. So this is increase font weight, this is decrease font weight. Click on that, and over here, if I select a text, it now says extra light. So this is extra light. All right. So these are the references that we are going to have. Now you can see that we have a number of references here, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? We have 6 references here, and these references correspond to the number of font weights that we have over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 font weights here, and that's why we have 6 references. So like I said, you could decide to actually create for, let's say, 3 or 4 references. It's not compulsory that you must create for all the references or font weights they have here, because some font families have a lot of font weights, right? So you could decide to create for the first 4 if you feel the first 4 are those that you need, or if you feel that you need all 6 in this case, you decide to create for all 6. So with this now, we've created our reference styles. So these are the reference styles that we are going to be using for our design. So this is going to be, in my case, I could change this to reference 1, which is fine, since that's the first one. The next one could be reference 2. Right? The next one could be reference 3. Right? The next one could be reference 4. The next one could be reference 5. And then the last one will be reference 6. So this will be reference 5. And this over here will be reference 6, giving me 6 reference styles in my own case. So now that I'm done with my reference styles, the next thing I need to create, because a typography system is comprised of reference styles and system styles. Like a reference styles is just a combination of different font weights that you could actually pick from, right? So these are my reference styles. Then the system styles are the actual styles that you use in the design. So from these reference styles, I'm going to actually pick the styles that I'm going to use in my design. So I'll come over here and create what is referred to as my system styles. To create my system styles, just select any styles that you are going to need for your design. So in my case, I'm going to be needing regular. So I'll come over here. I'll just make a copy of this regular frame, bring it here, which is fine. In my case, I'm going to be needing medium, but there is no option for medium here. So instead of medium, I'll take the next heavier font weight, which is semi-bold. Make a copy of this, bring it here, which is fine. And also, I'm going to be needing bold. Make a copy of this, and then bring it here, which is fine. So these are what I need for my system styles. I'm taking the regular, semi-bold, and bold variations of my type scale and using them as my system styles. So in my own design, I'm just going to be using regular, I'm going to be using semi-bold variants, and I'm also going to be using bold text variants as my system style. So these are the only things that I'm going to be using in my design. So let's say later on, a member of, let's say, your design team wants to actually use another style that is not in this system style. They can simply come to your reference style. Let's say they want to use a variation like the lightweight or the extra lightweight. They can simply come over here and then pick this particular reference style and use it in the design or in the project, because you have already created it here. So they don't have to actually create it from scratch, right? So these are for my reference styles, and these are my system styles. Now that we've created the reference styles and system styles, the next thing we need to do now is to save these styles as a style guide and create folders for the reference styles and the system styles, so that we can add these styles to our style library, and we can have our typography system created over here. So now we want to look at how to actually create a style guide or a typography style guide. We want to look at how to create a folder or a repository for a typography system. However, before we create our typography style guide and create folders for them, one question you may want to ask is, are these the only reference styles that could be created? Now remember that these reference styles were created based on the existing weight values that we have here in Figma and based on the font family, because the font family determines the number of weight values you are going to have. Some font families have more weight values than others, right? So since we now know that some font families have more weight values than others, are these the only reference styles that could be created? If I should select any particular text here and I come over to the weight values here, you can see that we have 6 weight values here, right? But aside from that, we also have italic variations of these weight values over here. So if you are wanting or needing to create references that are based on italic variations, you can also create references based on italic variations. Now, to do that, I could just, because you can see that if I come to the weight values, the italic variations that will be existing here are actually based on the weight values that I have here. So if I have extra light, I could have extra light italic. If I have light, I could have light italic. For regular, it's just italic. Alright, semi-bold, I have semi-bold italic. Bold, I have bold italic, right? So that's for that. For other font families that have, let's say, the medium font width, you might see medium italic. So what we have here are the major weight values. Then below them, we just have italic variations. And that's why these are the major references. But if you want to create any italic variations, after creating these major references, if I need an italic variation, I'll just come over here. For example, let's say I need an italic variation for light, right? I'll just select it. Once I select it, I'll make a copy and then bring it here. Let's say I need an italic variation for my reference. So now that I have it selected, I'll come over to this drop down, click on it, go to where it says text, right? And then you can see it says italic. The moment I click on it, automatically it gives me an italic variation of light. So this is light italic. If I select it now, you can see over here it says light italic, right? So light italic selected. So the same thing happens or applies to every other variation that you have here, right? So if you want an italic variation for extra light, just go over here like we did, select the text option and go for italic. Automatically it's going to convert that particular text or type scale to the italic variation of its existing font weight. So that is it for creating other references or for creating italic variations from your existing or main references. So that's for that. So at this point, we want to look at how to actually create a typography style guide and repository so that we can actually save our reference styles and our system styles. Now, to do that, we are going to need a naming convention. Now, how do I save this as part of my style library in such a way that I have them organized in a decent naming convention? And the first thing you want to do is that you want to actually decide what will be the general folder that will contain both your reference styles and your system styles. Of course, the general folder is going to be, let's say, typography system, or you can just put in typography, right? So for the naming convention, I could come over here, and if I want to save my styles, this is how I want to save them. I want them to be in a general folder. I want these entire styles, like my reference styles and my system styles, to be in this folder, right? Which I have here. So this will be a folder containing this and this. So this is the main folder, fine. This is a subfolder, this is subfolder, which is fine. So for the main folder, in my case, I just want to name it typography. So I'll come over here, right? Just click on the text tool and then create any text and type in typography, which is fine. Now you could decide to leave it like this, but in my case, I want to put in the name of the font family as part of it. So I'll put in Titanium Web. And that's fine. Now this is going to be the name of my general folder. Like I said, you could decide to put in typography, or decide to also include the name of the font family like I have done. Either case is fine. Now to make this a folder, after writing the name, put in a // The moment I put in a forward slash, automatically everything before that forward slash is now a main folder. So this is now a main folder. So I have now converted what I have here to a folder. Now, inside that folder, I have reference styles and system styles. So I'll come over here and create a subfolder, because this is a subfolder here, but you cannot actually save both of them at the same time. So you have to start with one of them. So in this case, I'm going to be starting with my reference styles. So I'll come over here. After that forward slash, I'm going to put in reference styles, or I'll just put in references. I'll just put in reference. You can put in reference, or you can just put in ref, right? REF, you're fine. Then I'll put another forward slash. By putting another forward slash, I've turned this word here, which is reference, to a folder. And it's now a folder within a folder, which simply means that this is a subfolder. So I have typography in bracket Italian web as my main folder, the forward slash. That simply means that everything behind is a folder. And I have reference as what? As a subfolder. Now after that, for our references, we have different references. We have reference 1, reference 2, reference 3, down to, I think we have reference 6 with the Italic variation that we created. This will be reference 7, right? Depending on the number of references that you actually create. Like I said, you can decide to create just the main references, right? Or even pick just 4 from the main references. And then if you need Italic variations, you know how to go about that. Now, all the references that you created, right, be it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you are going to save all the references as part of your typography system in your style library. So in this case, I want to start by saving the references for the extra light variation, right? So in that case, every text here belongs to the extra light category. Every text here belongs to the light category, and every text here belongs to the regular category, which simply means that the regular category could also be treated as a subfolder, just like the light category could be treated as a subfolder, because it contains what? It contains objects. So if I want to save for the extra light category, I'll come over to my naming convention, right? And I know that, of course, the entire thing is a typography system, right? And this is the font family that I've chosen. I'm saving what style, my reference styles. Now, for my reference styles, what part of the reference styles am I saving first? I'm saving the extra light category. So I'll come over here, put in extra light. That is also a folder. I'll put in another forward slash, which is fine, right? Now, after putting in extra lights as a subfolder, since I'm saving for the extra light category, is now I can save the text that will be inside that folder, right? So I have all this text inside that particular extra light folder. So I'm going to save the display large, display medium, display small, headline large, headline medium, headline small, down to label large text or label small text. Okay, so at this terminal point here, if I'm saving the display large text, I'm going to type in display large. If I'm saving the display medium text, I'll type in display medium. If I'm saving the headline large, I'll type in headline large, right? So that's for that. So for this case now, these are actually the folders and subfolders that I'll need. Typography in bracket Italian web, fine. Put a slash, that becomes a folder. Then under that I'm saving the references first. So this will be reference. Under it, I'm saving for the extra light category first. So the extra light becomes a folder itself again. So the first text I want to save in this case is the display large text. So I'll come over here, I'll click on display large, right? And then try to save it. Since I am saving the display large text first, I'll come back now to this naming convention and then put in display large. Right? Now you can put in display, then put in spacebar, then put in large, but I want them to be together. So I'm putting in display underscore large, or you can put in display hyphen large, right? Either way works. So now I have this as my naming convention, and this is how I'm going to save my display large text under the extra light category, which is under the reference styles, which is under my typography system. So I'm going to select this naming convention. I'll Ctrl C to select it, and then when I want to save my text, I'll just come to that particular reference that I want to save, then bring back my panels, which is fine, and then come over here and select the first text that I want to save, which is the display large text. So I'm going to select this. Now that I have it selected, I'll come to my properties panel, come to this icon here, close to typography. There's this icon at the right? It says apply styles. Click on it. Once you click on it, automatically this menu comes up. There's this plus icon here. Click on that. Once I hover on it, you see it says create style. So I'll click on it. You can see that there's a label or tooltip there that says create style. So click on it. Once you click on it, you are going to have this menu come up where you have name and description. So the name is going to be that naming convention that we've actually created. I'll just Ctrl V to put in that naming convention, which is fine. Now you can see that I am saving the display large text, which is this display large text. That's fine. Now under description, you put in anything you want to put in to enable anybody who comes to actually traverse or look at your design system, to enable them understand what you have saved. So in my case now, I'm just going to put in desktop, since this is used for a desktop device. So desktop devices. That's fine. Once I've done that, now you can actually put in whatever you want to put in here, right? So in my case, I just want to put in desktop devices. So anybody that sees this knows that this text is for desktop devices. And so now I'm going to click on create style. Once I click on create style, automatically I have that saved here as a style. So let's see what we have actually created. To see it, click on the empty canvas. Once you click on the empty canvas, come over here to your style guide, and you can see I have text styles, right? So under text styles, what do I have? I have typography, in bracket titanium web, which simply refers to the font family. Under it, I have a subfolder. Now this is the main folder, that's why it's at the top. Under it, I have a subfolder that says reference, which simply means that everything under this reference are my reference styles. Now for my reference styles, the first one I'm saving is what? Extra light, right? So under extra light, the first text that I've saved is the display large text, which is this one that I have there, which is fine. Now I can decide to collapse all this, right? If I collapse the main folder, automatically everything becomes hidden. I can expand it. I decide to actually collapse this, right? And then put everything as what? As just the main folder, which is actually visible here. Or I can expand this. It shows me that I have my reference styles, right? I can click on that drop down. Automatically under reference, I have extra light, which is this. Okay. And then click on that drop down. Under extra light, I have display large, which I have saved here. So now I will select the next text to save it, right? Which is display medium. Now I'm still in the extra light category. So I'll select display medium, come back to my properties panel, go back to that icon that says apply styles, click on it, and then come to this plus icon here, click on it. Once I click on it, this menu comes up. Of course, paste that same naming convention that you actually copied before. You paste it. I'll click on Ctrl V. I've pasted that now. But in this case, I am not saving display large. I'm saving display medium. So I'll come over here. I'll change the large at the part to medium. That's all I'm going to do. Now over here, this is actually used for tablet devices. So I'll put in tablets for the description. Tablet devices, which is fine. Then I'll click on create style. Now I have that. To save the next one, I'll click on display small, which is fine. We are going to be fast about this, very fast about this now. I'll come over here, click on this icon, then click on the plus icon, which is fine. Then paste the name. In this case, this is display small, so I'll change the large part at the end to small, which is fine. In this case, I have mobile device, or I can just put in mobile in my own case, so that we are faster. Click on that. Automatically, I have created my style guide for display large, display medium, display small. So quickly, let's look at what we have. If I click on the empty canvas, if I come over here, see under extra light, I have display large, I have display medium, I have what? Display small. Now you can see that the sizes are also written beside the text or the name of the text, right? You can see that over here, display large, just like we have it here, 64. By saving it, you can see that display large, the size here is 64. Then I have the line height just very close to it. So 64 for the size, then 72 for the line height. All right. Display medium, the size is 52, the line height is 60. Display small, the size is 28, line height is 36. So let's also save that for the headline text. I'll just come over here, click on headline large, right? And then come to typography, go to that icon, click on it, click on the plus icon again. And then let me drag this over here, paste in my naming convention, I'll Ctrl V. But in this case now, I'm not only going to change the last text, which is this large, medium, and small region of the naming convention. Instead, I have left the display category. I am now in the headline category. So I'm going to change this entire text here. So instead of display large or display small or display medium, I'm going to change the entire text at the end. So I'll just take out that entire text down to the display section. Now, when you're taking out that text, you have to be careful not to take out this / that is just beside the name of the text, because if you take it out, automatically you have actually removed that particular subfolder that you have there. So while you are clicking on your backspace key, be careful not to take out that forward slash. So in this case, I have headline large. So I'll just type in headline underscore large. All right. And in order to prevent me from actually making this editing over and over again, I can copy everything now. I'll select everything, click on Ctrl C. I have now copied it. Fine. And then now that I have that as headline large, I can come over here and put in desktop for description, which is fine. And then click on create style. Now that has been created. I'll select the next one, which is headline medium. I'll come over here, click on that icon again, and then click on the plus icon. And what I'm going to do is put in the name. I'll Ctrl V. Now you can see that since I copied it, I now have headline large. Since I am still in the headline category, the only thing I need to change now is a text at the end. So I'll remove that large and put in medium. And then, of course, this is for tablets. And then click on create style, and I'm fine. Quickly, I'll select the next text and then come over here, click on that icon, click on the plus icon, and save for the headline small text. I'll click on the input field, then Ctrl V again to put in the naming convention. I'm still in the headline category, so I'll remove that large, and now I have small. Headline small, right? And then for headline small, this is actually in the mobile category, so I'll come over here, put in mobile, which is fine. Click on create style. So now I've saved the text styles for display large, display medium, display small, headline large, headline medium, headline small. So if I should click on the empty canvas and I come over here, you can see that under the extra light category, I have text styles, I have my typography system, right, with the font family written beside it, which is fine. I'm seeing that I have reference styles here. So under references, I have extra light. So I have display large, display medium, display small, which is fine. Headline large, headline medium, headline small, which is also fine. So that's how you can actually save your reference styles. Okay. So enough to save our time, I'm going to go offline and then create or try to save all these reference styles that I have here. But before I do that, let's see how we can actually save our system styles. So now we now know how to save our reference styles. So if you want to save for the title large region, all you can simply do is select that text that says title large, right? Then come over to the properties panel, click on this icon again, and click on the plus icon. Then what you can do is drag this over here. For the name, you can Ctrl V to put in your naming convention. Since you are in the title category, you are going to change this entire region that says headline large. You change that region to title large. So once you change it, you are going to copy it so that you don't have to keep typing in again, and then save every other one. All right, just like we've done for the first two cases for display large and headline large. So now that we know how to save our reference styles, let's see how we can actually save our system styles. We are also going to save for display and the headline category, after which I'm going to go offline and save for every particular style that I have here. So to actually save my system styles, I'll come back to my naming convention, make a copy of this, bring it down here. Let me make a copy of this and bring it down here, which is fine. Now to save my reference style, my system styles is also part of my typography system. So I'm going to leave this typography, this text that says typography in bracket Italian web, I'll leave it there, right? But once I come over to where it says reference, I'm now going to change that to system. I can change that to system, or you can put in SYS, right? You can put in the abbreviation SYS, they mean the same thing. Just like you can put in reference here, or you can put in REF, they'll actually mean the same thing. So I'm going to change this to system. Now for my system styles, what are the styles that I selected to use as my system styles? I selected for regular, I selected for semi-bold, and I selected for bold. So these are the styles that I'm going to save under system styles. Under system styles, I have regular over here. I'll come over here and then put in I'll change this from extra lights to regular, which is fine. Then now that I've changed it from extra light to regular, I can now start saving my first, second, and third text. So now I have the first text that I want to save is the display large text. So I'll come over here, check, I have display large. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and I'm going to copy this text. I'll copy that. Once I copy it, I'll come to my system styles, right? Select the display large text. Then come over to my properties panel, go to where it says typography, Then look at the right hand side. There's an icon there. Over on it, it says apply styles. Click on it. Then this menu comes up. Click on that plus icon that says create style. Click on it. And automatically it gives you this tab here where you can create your style. So for the naming convention, I'll click on the input field there and then I'll Ctrl V to actually paste what I copied. And you can now see that I have the name here. Then for description, this is used for a desktop device. So I'm going to put in DESKTOP, which is desktop, and then I'll create style. Automatically, I have a system style created. And before we look at it, let's just create for the entire display large region. I'll come over here, go for display medium, and then come back to my properties panel, click on that icon again, click on the plus icon that says create style, then Ctrl V to put in the naming convention, and then for this text, this is display medium, so I will remove the large at the end. Now this is me pressing my backspace key to remove that large text there, and then I'll type in medium, right? And this is for tablet devices, so I'll put in tablets, which is fine, and then I'll click on create style, and then I'll go to display small, do that same thing quickly, all right? Put in my naming convention, and then remove that large there and change that to small, which is fine. This is for mobile devices, so I'll put in mobile. That's fine. I'll click on create style. Then I have that. So I have saved for these three that I have here. So if I click on my empty canvas, you can now see that under text styles, right, I have, let me collapse this and let me collapse this. Under typography, or better still, under text styles, I have my typography, right, or typography system. Under my typography system, I have my reference styles and I have my system styles, right? Now, like I said, this, you could name this as REF or SYS, and you name system as SYS, you are fine. So under my reference styles, if I click on that drop down, I'm going to see all the styles that I save under references, right? And then under my system styles, if I click on that drop down, you are going to see that I have styles saved under what? My system styles here. Now you can see that once I click on this drop down for my system styles, what I have here is a category for regular, right? Because for my system styles now, I decided to pick or choose regular as part of the styles that is going to be under my system category. So under system styles, I have regular. In the same way, you are going to save for the system styles, you are going to save for semi-bold, and then you are going to save for bold. Now, if I want to save for semi-bold under the system styles, I'll come back to that naming convention, right? And then let's assume now that I have saved for all this, because you are going to save for display large, headline large, title large, or better still, you are going to save for the display category, the headline category, title category, the body category, and then label category. When you are done with that, you then move over to the next style in your system styles. You do the same thing for your reference styles. So for my system styles, let's assume that I am done with the regular category and I want to save for the semi-bold category. I'll come back to my naming convention and then change this from regular to semi-bold. Change this from regular, I'll just put in semi-bold. And I'm fine. Now for the semi-bold category, I'll still be saving the first text, which is the display large text. So I can copy this. And then I'll come over to my semi-bold category, select the first text, which is the display large text. Come over here to the properties panel, click on that particular icon there, and then click on this plus icon that says create style, and automatically put in your naming convention. And then for this case, this is a display large text, so this is going to be for a desktop device, DESKTOP, which is fine. And then click on create style. Automatically, I have that created. I can select this, right? Save it quickly, just like I did for the rest. Change that from display large to display medium, which is fine. And then for my description text, I can put in tablet. That's fine. And then click on create style. I have that. For my display small text, do exactly the same thing. Put in your naming convention. Change that from display large to small, which is fine. Then this is for mobile devices. Put in mobile for your description. And then click on create style. I have something like this, right? So when you want to go for your headline text, automatically you are going to change that last or terminal part of the naming convention from display large to headline large. And then you start editing just the terminal part, which is large, medium, small. You go to your title category, change the last part of the name to title large, and then you start editing just the terminal word, which is large, medium, and small, just like that. So let's see what we've created so far. If I click on the empty canvas, can now see that under typography, or better say under text styles, I have typography. Under typography, I have reference styles and I have system styles. You can decide to expand anyone, but since you are going to be working on a design project, most likely you are going to be using your system styles. Your reference styles will just be there in case you need other styles that are not in your reference styles, or in case there is a need for maintenance or updates on a particular project and they need more styles that are not in the system styles, they can always go to the reference styles. So under typography, I have my reference styles, I have my system styles, right? And then I can click on the drop down for my system styles. I have for regular text, I have all these that I've saved. For semi-bold, I have all these that I've saved, right? So I'm going to go offline and then save up the entire style that I have here. And then we are going to see how to apply these styles practically to a design across all 3 breakpoints. Alright, I am done creating my typography system, and now I have my reference styles and my system styles. In order for us to see that, we are going to go over to the style library on the properties panel. So I'm going to click on my empty canvas, and then when I come over here under styles, I have text styles. Under text styles, you can see I have typography, then in bracket titanium web representing the font family. If I should actually click on that drop down to expand it, I have my reference styles and my system styles. Over here, I have reference and I have system. Now, if I should click on the drop down for system styles, I have 3 system styles which I chose here, right? Which include regular, semi-bold, and bold. I'm going to now collapse that. If I click on my reference styles here and expand it, under my reference styles, I have extra light, regular, semi-bold, and bold. Now, in my own case, I did not create any reference styles for the font weight of black, and I did not create any reference styles for any of the italic variations that I have there. So that is what I have. If I come back to my system styles, which include regular, semi-bold, and bold, if I actually expand that of the regular font weight, I will come over here and click on this, and you can see that under regular, I have my display large text, display medium, display small, headline large, headline medium, headline small, title large, title medium, title small, body large, body medium, body small, label large, label medium, label small. Now I'm going to collapse that. If I go to the semi-bold font weight, if I actually click on that, you can see I have the same thing saved there under semi-bold font weight. If I go to the bold font weight, I have all the styles saved here under the bold font weight. So this way, I have carefully saved and named my system styles inside a folder, right? Now the same thing happens for the reference styles. If I collapse my system styles and I go to my reference styles, under extra light, you can see I have all the text styles saved from display large to label small. The same thing happens for the light category and for every other category that I have here under the reference styles. So this is how you can actually save your typography system as reference styles and as system styles. Now, one thing you need to pay attention to while you are trying to come up with your style guide for your typography system, like I said, is the naming convention. Now, in this case, I did not save any of the italic variations. So if I actually wanted to save these italic variations under my reference styles, I'll come back to the naming convention where it says reference, because I'm saving this under my reference style. Now, in this case, what font weight am I saving? In this case, I am saving an italic variation. So I'll come over here and change this from light to the name of the italic variation. So if I come over here and let's look at the italic variation that we have here, we have light. So in this case, this could be italic light. So I could come over here to the naming convention. Instead of light, I'm going to change this to italic light. Change to italic light. You can put in the underscore, you can put in a hyphen. Now I have italic light. And under it, the first text I'm going to be saving is the display large text. So if I want to actually include this particular variation as part of my references, I'm going to copy this name. And once I copy it, I will then go to the folder that contains, or the frame that contains all my italic variations, right? Because these are the italic variations. So in this case, I'll put in italic lights. All right, and then click on the display large text. Then come to my properties panel, click on this icon. Of course, I'm then going to click on the plus icon that says create style. And once that is done, I'll come over here, click on the input field, and then paste in the name of this text that I want to save, right? Now, since it's a display large text, the description is going to be that it is for a desktop device. So I could just put in desktop, and that's fine. And then I'll click on create style. The moment I click on create style, I already have a new subfolder now under Italic variation. So if I come over to my references and I click on that drop down, you can now see that I have another folder here for Italic Italic lights, which is now a new subfolder or a new style for my references. And under it, I have only saved one particular text style, which is that of this display large style. So if I over on this, you can see I have display large, and that's how you actually save for everyone that you have here. Now, I want to assume that after saving this first one, I want to save for the headline text. I'll come over here, click on headline large, and then come to my properties panel, click on this icon that says apply styles. I'll click on it, and then I'll come over here, click on the plus icon that says create style. Then I have this. Now, in this case, the moment I paste in the naming convention, you can see that over here, this is now the headline large text. So I'll go to the last name that I have here. You can see that I still have display large there. So what do? I can just double click to select it and change that name to headline large. And then anytime you make any edits like this, just copy the new name. So I'll change that to headline large. And over here, since this is actually a large text, this is also for a desktop device. I'll go and put in desktop there again. And then I'm going to save that. That way, when I come back to save the next text, which is the headline medium text, I could just easily select it. And then click on this icon, click on the plus icon that says create style. Then paste what I just copied. You can now see that I am now in the headline section, right? That's why I say I have headline large there. So in this case, I just have to remove the text at the back and change that from large to medium. Then I have something like this. Then over here for my description text, of course, I'm going to put in tablets since this is a medium text. And then click on create style. And I'm going to have it saved under the Italic light category. Then when I come to my body text, because I have body large, body medium, body small, you are going to save them in the same way. So if I want to save my body text, I'm going to select this one that says body large. I'll come over here. Since I am still under the same folder, I'll click on that create style icon, then put in the name. Now I am still under the Italic light folder. So for that reason, this folder's name is still going to be Italic light, which simply means that the only thing I'm going to be changing is the text style, which I have as the terminal part of this naming convention, which I have at the right hand side here. So text style here now is body large. So I'll come over here, just double click on that, change that from headline large to body large. I'll put in body large. And then anytime I have edited the name, I will always copy it. For body large, of course, a body large text of 16 will be used for text like description text or body text. So that will be constant across all devices. So for your body large, body medium, body small, label large, label medium, label small, they will be constant across all the devices. So in this case, my description, I'm just going to put in all devices. I'm not going to put in tablets, mobile or desktop. Instead, I'll put in all devices, letting me know that this text will be constant across all devices. So I'm going to click on create style. Now I have that. If I want to create or if I want to make the next text there a style, which is the body medium text, I'll come over here, quickly just click on this and then paste the last naming convention that I copied, Ctrl V. And then I have, you can now see that I want to save the body medium text. What I have here is the body large text. So I'll just click on my backspace key and remove the large and then change that large to medium. And then I have this. All right, for my description text as well, I'm going to put in all devices. And then I'll click on create style, and then I've created that. We are going to do the same for this and for all the label variations that we have here. All right, so for your label large text, your labels medium, and your label small text, the description will be all devices since they are applied across all devices. The same thing for your body text. When you are saving those of the display text, that's when you can have desktop, tablet, and mobile, the headline, desktop, tablet, and mobile, the title, desktop, tablet, and mobile, and just like that. So after you've done that, if you want to move to another folder, for example, I want to move to let's say the extra light folder, and I want to save that, you will come back to your naming convention and change this from italic light to what? To extra light. So I'm going to change this part from italic light to extra light and then copy it before I then start selecting the text style and saving them one after the other. Now let us see a practical application of our text styles which we have now created here in our typography system. Let's say I want to apply this text style to an actual UI mockup. I'm going to come over here, and then this is a desktop device. This is actually a tablet mockup, and this is also a mobile mockup. So I'll come over here, and then for this hero text that says careers at Davio Energy, I'll select it. And once I select it, I want to now give it a style from my style library. I'll come over to this icon that says apply styles. I'll click on that. Now once I click on it, automatically all the styles that I've saved will be shown here inside this tab. As you can see, it says typography in brackets Titanium Web. Over here I have, these are my reference styles. So I'm going to scroll down until I go to the region where I am going to have my system styles. You can see that these are all reference styles. So once I get to this region, I have now gotten to system styles. Under system styles, this is regular. So if I want to make this text a regular text, I'll click on any of these styles here under the regular folder. Or if I want to make that a bold text, I'm going to scroll till I see where I saved my bold styles. So I'm going to scroll down to over here. These are my system styles and this is my bold style. So for my desktop device, I want to put in my display large text. I'll just click on display large. Then I have this done over here. Then if I come over to my tablet device, I could select the hero text in my tablet device, come back to this region that talks about typography, go to that icon, click on it again, and then go to where I have system styles. Now you can see that in trying to apply these styles, I'm always going to system styles because it's the system styles that you are going to use to actually make your designs. Your reference styles are just there for future references. All right. So I'll go to my system style. These are reference styles. I'll scroll down till I get to my system styles. All right. In this case, I'm also looking for a bold text. So this is regular. Scroll down to where you have semi-bold, and then scroll down to where you have bold. So I want to put in a display large text here, but for a tablet device. So I'll just go for display medium in this case. And you can see that when I hover on it, the tooltip that comes will say display medium, and you can see that there's an information there that says tablets, letting me know that I need to actually apply this to a tablet device. So I'll click on that. Automatically, I have this for my tablet device. For my mobile device, I'll select this text, then go to my typography system, go to system styles under the bold category, and then in this case, now I'm going to select the display small text that I have there. So I'll click on this, and automatically, I didn't select it. Let me select this again, and then go back to my system styles for my bold category. This is semi-bold. Over here, I have system, and then I have bold. So now I'll click on display small, and I have this applied. And now you can see that saving or having a style guide in terms of a typography style actually made the application of sizes to these particular three screens very seamless, right? It made it very fast, right? So that is for that with creating a typography system. Now, after creating this typography system, of course, later on, you have to actually convert or import these systems into a plugin and convert each of these to a token, which we are going to look at when we start looking at handing off a design or handing off a product for development. So at this point, this is it for creating the style guides, and this is it for creating a typography system, and this is it for actually trying to come up with a naming convention for a folder and how to save each of these styles in that folder that you have named. And like we said initially, when you are coming up with your typography system, you could decide to use these exact values here that were given by material design, and then of course create your references for light, create your references for medium, create your references for bold using these values that were given by material design. Or you can decide to actually come up with your own values like we did in this case, coming up with our own customized values in order for us to get a customized type skill which we are going to be applying to our design. So this is it for creating a typography system from ground up. Of course, later on we are going to look at how to import these styles into a plugin like Figma tokens or any other plugin to convert them into tokens. Now, after this typography system creation, we are now going to look at how to come up with a color system from first principles, just like we actually have it this way. And we are then going to look at shortcuts to coming up with color systems, our typography systems, and any other system that we can actually create any shortcut for. So this is it for typography system. See you guys in a class for color system documentation.